Welcome to the weather forecast on CIA TV channel. Dear friends, a strong cold wave coming in late September. This strong tropical wave. In today's video, we'll break down what you need to know about the weather that will affect the United States over the next 7 days. Storms with this kind of changeable weather pattern may be on the rise, which is actually good news for many central and eastern states, as the weather has been quite dry in many places and is expected to stay quite dry at least in the short to medium term. We'll also discuss the upcoming cold front, which is expected to warm up from the colder temperatures we've experienced over the past several weeks. But current models suggest a return to cool weather by the end of September. Also, a look at the tropics, as we have a little more activity to watch here, different from what we've been able to tell in the past week or so. A strong tropical wave is moving in off the coast of Africa that could potentially develop. And first of all, we're going to look at this 6 to 10 day temperature outlook from the National Weather Service. And this is going to be from the 17th to the 21st. It's expected to warm up in the central and eastern states as time goes on, and you'll see cooler temperatures along the west. But in this case, we've got coast-to-coast warmth. Wow, that's interesting. However, I do expect that in the coming days, this pattern could start to cool off as we look at the 20th to the 21st and the 26th to the 27th. We could start to see a gradual cooling down in the central and eastern states if the forecast model continues to show cooler than normal temperatures for late September. So, as we're just a few days into the weekend, we've got quite a bit of activity in the central states. We've got the potential for thunderstorms and showers in the coming days. There's some activity in the northwest as well, but very little in the east. We could see some coastal activity starting to pick up in the middle of next week, Tuesday into Wednesday. That's the 16th to the 17th. If you live along the east coast, you know we've had a very dismal coastal storm system with just a lingering drizzle. It's like a fog rolling down for about 2 days straight. Activity continues in the northern plains. We're starting to see more activity in this southeast area, and we're starting to see a little more widespread activity. Much of the area south of the Mississippi River, and even the Carolina coast. We're seeing activity here at this point. There's still kind of the western and central states that are seeing some activity as well. That's going to happen on Saturday, the 20th. After that, fortunately, we start to transition into something where we have this flow up the east coast. We have a low here near the Great Lakes with a cold front, and that's actually going to bring us back into this pattern, into a trough in the eastern ridge following the western pattern around the 25th. Time frame. Oh wow, this low in this area is also very indicative of that, and is going to bring some much needed rain. So we'll have to see if that actually happens. Looking at the totals, we can see a few hotspots like the Central Plains and the Northern Plains. Oh, like the Carolinas here, some areas of the Mississippi River have some light rain. But we're getting closer to normal for most of these areas. There's still a lot of the western and central states seeing some above average precipitation, and now some of the eastern areas seeing above average precipitation. And when we look at it, we can see that we're still holding on to the cool air until about the 15th for the neighboring coastal areas. Oh wow, the west starts to cool off and much of the east warms up. Around the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, we start to see a second buildup of warm air in the west from Mexico right up into the western United States and western Canada. And right away, we start to see some Arctic activity coming into the United States, Canada, obviously in the northern parts of Canada and the Arctic. It moves right down into Canada into the United States with some pretty harsh cooler air than normal. When it gets to the east here, it's not too harsh. I'd say it's a little bit below normal to moderate. Now, let's look at the tropics. Right now, there's 3 bias points back to the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico toward Jamaica. Oh, anywhere in the Cayman Islands, this area. I'm predicting some potential for some action. So, if you're watching from Bise, pay a little more attention to what we might see over the next few days. Same thing off the southeastern coast of the United States, across the Corollas. So we're in the Caribbean. Note that, we're in Barbados, just to the east. We're tracking a tropical wave that's going to bring some rain over the next few days to the eastern Caribbean. There's no development in that area. But here's a new tropical wave that's going to form off the coast of Africa. It's going to develop. Is it going to hit us? We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully. There's enough dry air to dampen that air and keep it from developing. But we're going to see a surge of moisture from the western Caribbean back through Central America. We've had some really heavy rain. Guatemala, parts of Honduras, Belize, Yucatan, the Yucatan Peninsula, Mexico has been more active. Nicaragua, of course, we've seen some rain and storms. Costa Rica and Panama have scattered areas of rain elsewhere from Jamaica back to Cuba and the Cayman Islands. So, look out for a few spots of showers and storms. Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and there's another tropical wave coming in. The problem is where you see these red shaded areas, which is basically all of us in the Caribbean back to the Bahamas, most of the Gulf. If anything tries to develop above that area, it could actually develop quite quickly. And yes, that's a concern. I'll warn you guys to be prepared. The development off the coast of Africa, showing what's going on near the Western Caribbean, but sometimes the models like to throw something out there. And they're not sure if it's going to be in the Western Caribbean or the Gulf or if it's going to spill into the Eastern Pacific. But keep in mind, Honduras, back to Belize, Mexico. We're watching that area closely. Even Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. Corollas, as we're watching this one closely, a new tropical wave is heading into the Caribbean as well. And then, look near the coast of the Carolinas and wouldn't be surprised to see something spin up near the southeastern United States just because it's so active, right? Florida, north of the Bahamas. There's been a lot of heavy rain. We'll see if something tries to develop. As we work on Tuesday, there's an area that's very likely to develop at least some in the Atlantic. We'll see. It could move closer. It's very far out there. Another tropical wave looks like it's going to try to develop back behind. And again, I'm watching the southeast United States. But my biggest concern is closer to home. I'm watching the possibility of something trying to develop in the Western Caribbean. This is a tropical wave that I don't see developing as it moves into the Eastern Caribbean. It's more rain today and you can see it develop. And then I want to move over to the States just for a second in the Atlantic part of Canada as we move into tomorrow. Scattered rain in some areas, and if it does, it could be very heavy, leading to flooding in some areas scattered across Jamaica, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. There's a tropical wave that's approaching Barbados, St. Lucia, Dominica. Some heavy rains in Costa Rica, Panama, Yucatan Peninsula, Merida a little bit more active. The new tropical wave comes in near Dominica, even back to St. Vincent, Grenadines. We could have some of that rain. Yeah, scattered rain in Trinidad and Tobago. We had some heavier rains in some places yesterday. Now, to the north, keep an eye on the fronts that are around. And you can see what's going on here. Keep an eye on Bermuda. Keep an eye on New Zealand, Finland as we head toward the Avalon Peninsula. The seas are pretty rough with the old fronts that are in place, but we'll see some additional rains right here as we head into tomorrow. And then we'll get here, you can see on Monday. There's a spot that we're looking at in the Western Caribbean near Central America. But this area, this is Baja, so we're going to be moving towards Mexico. And finally, as we get deeper into next week, the Atlantic waterways are going to be rising a little bit, because we could see some of that happening out in the Atlantic. In terms of rainfall, some areas of Florida, back to the northern Bahamas, Cuba, scattered areas of rain and storms, where we'll have some additional rain. 5 to 10 centimeters of rain or 50 to 100 millimeters of rain. So that's pretty much on top of what we've had, right? Some of us have been really active, and these will be big storms that could come back to Cuba and Jamaica. We've had some bigger storms, others not so much, scattered across the Cayman Islands. But if there are storms, including Haiti, the Dominican Republic, we'll have some 75 to 100 millimeters of rain. So keep an eye on the runoff and the rivers. Maybe some scattered thunderstorms in Puerto Rico. We'll see some of the US and British Virgin Islands. Overall, not a lot of rain totals. And then keep an eye on St. Lucia, Martinica, Barbados for the next tropical wave to move near Dominica. St. Vincent in the Grenadines could bring us another 50 millimeters of rain. Suriname is a little quieter. Scattered showers in Guyana. Northeast Venezuela, rain, but that's the core of some of the rain. The next 3 days are really going to be rainy. Lucia, Martinica, Barbados. Looking across the area around Mexico City, Texas. It's just dry, but we've seen the monsoon flow from West Mexico pick up towards New Mexico with some additional rain that could add up to about an inch. Much of the southern U.S. remains quiet. But as we head southeast and away from the coast, that's where we'll be watching for heavier rain and potential development. So a 40% to 50% chance of scattered showers and thunderstorms over the next few days for Jamaica. Same thing in the Cayman Islands, even though we don't have any mainland islands. Trinidad and Tobago as the next tropical wave approaches. Some dry, some rain, and maybe even a few thunderstorms with gusty winds. Expect an increased chance of rain tomorrow and Saturday in Barbados. Oh wow, the next tropical wave is coming in. No progress, but I'm giving you a heads up in Barbados, St. Lucia. We're going to see an increased chance of rain. The chance of rain will increase in Martinique on Saturday and especially Sunday as the next tropical wave comes in. In Dominica, the chance of rain is up to 50%. So while the chance of rain is generally low today, it will increase a little bit as we head into the weekend. Antigua, Barbuda, the chance of rain, generally low. There will be some. St. Kitts, Montserrat, some areas of flooding, scattered thunderstorms. 30% chance over the next 2 days. US and British Virgin Islands, in the Bahamas. Mostly the northern Bahamas near Freeport. Turks and South, scattered areas of rain and storms still in the Dominican Republic through Haiti. So a strong tropical wave could bring some action in the Atlantic. But I'm watching the Western Caribbean, from Jamaica back to Belize, for the potential for some action over the next few days. We'll be keeping an eye on the southeastern coast of the United States. The next storm is going to be strong. The weather is going to change a lot over the next few days, and the biggest reason is because the average wind flow is changing dramatically with all that cold air coming in from Canada. So let's take a look at the average wind flow right now. Oh, we have a big trough of low pressure that's sitting in Northern California this morning. We also have a high pressure system that's building up across Texas and then a small low pressure system over the Great Lakes. What's going to happen over the next few days is we're going to see this low pressure system along the west coast become severe again, especially across the northern plains. While the high pressure will continue to build up across the central and southern plains, we're likely to see a lot of warm air build up anywhere east of the Rocky Mountains throughout the weekend. We don't really have a northwesterly flow anywhere strong enough to bring in cold weather. Instead, we're going to have a pattern of severe weather that will return tomorrow through Saturday into Sunday across the Great Plains, maybe even a small portion of the Midwest. And then finally next week, we're going to continue to see an active weather pattern across the northern plains and Midwest with a couple of low pressure systems moving over the Rocky Mountains. Oh wow, along the Gulf Coast, the southeast, and even along the east coast, it's looking pretty warm and dry for the next 7 to 10 days. we've got a very small area of above average temperatures across the Great Plains. Cooler than normal along the west coast, and temperatures around average along the east coast. We're going to be watching a large area of warm air develop across the Great Plains, the Midwest, and the Ohio Valley, and into early next week, that warm air will continue across the Great Plains, Midwest, and Ohio Valley. Back on the East Coast, we've had some scattered showers and thunderstorms across Florida and even as far north as southern New England. But overall, pretty nice weather everywhere in between. From Louisiana and South Texas all the way up to northern New England, conditions are pretty much perfect. The only area that could be a little different would be Florida and a small portion of the East Coast. We're also keeping an eye out for some severe weather to return over the next 7 days. We're expecting some scattered showers and isolated storms anywhere from Colorado back to North Dakota, and a little bit of activity back in Florida and South Texas. High pressure is building across the Northeast and across Canada as we approach Saturday. This is largely due to a large low-pressure system that's sitting near the Rocky Mountains. We should have at least some activity here across the Dakotas and Nebraska, but this will be mostly across the high plains, where I expect at least some isolated severe weather to return with strong winds, large hail, maybe even a few tornadoes. And then on Sunday and Monday, we'll have another round of severe weather across the northern plains. Not much is expected for the Midwest until Sunday, which is a day where we could see some severe weather trying to make an appearance. But overall, nothing major is in the forecast right now. Early next week, scattered showers and thunderstorms will continue across the northern plains and Midwest. Rain will also continue across the southeast, and then anywhere in between. We're just talking about the possibility of scattered showers and thunderstorms from now through next Thursday.
And we'll start with what's going on across the country today. We've got some big storms back in the Central Plains. We've got some pretty high winds and hail back in eastern Colorado and western Kansas. All of this is coming from a new trough of low pressure that's now moving back over the west coast, which is expected to bring more severe weather as we head into tomorrow and even as we get closer to Friday across the Great Plains and perhaps even back into the Midwest. The weather is going to change a lot over the next few days, and the biggest reason is because the average wind pattern is changing dramatically with all that cold air coming in from Canada. So let's take a look at the average wind pattern right now. Oh, we've got a big trough of low pressure that's sitting over Northern California this morning. We've also got a ridge that's building across Texas and then a little low pressure system over the Great Lakes. What's going to happen over the next couple of days is we're going to see this low pressure system along the west coast become severe again, especially across the northern plains on Friday. While high pressure will continue to build across the central and southern plains, we're likely to see a lot of warm air build up anywhere east of the Rocky Mountains throughout the weekend. We don't really have a northwesterly flow anywhere strong enough to bring cold weather. Instead, we're going to have a severe weather pattern that's going to return tomorrow through Saturday into Sunday across the Great Plains, maybe even a small portion of the Midwest. And then finally next week, we're going to continue to see an active weather pattern across the northern plains and Midwest with a couple of low-pressure systems moving over the Rocky Mountains. Oh wow, along the Gulf Coast, the Southeast, and even along the East Coast, it's looking pretty warm and dry for the next 7 to 10 days. We've got a very small area of above-average temperatures across the Great Plains. Cooler than normal along the West Coast, and temperatures around average along the East Coast. We're going to be watching a large area of warm air build up across the Great Plains, the Midwest, and the Ohio Valley. And into early next week, that warm air will continue across the Great Plains, the Midwest, and the Ohio Valley. Back on the East Coast, we've got some scattered showers and thunderstorms across Florida and even as far north as southern New England. But overall, pretty nice weather everywhere else in between. From Louisiana and South Texas all the way up to northern New England, conditions are pretty much perfect. The only area that might be slightly different would be Florida and a small portion of the East Coast. We're also keeping an eye out for the possibility of some severe weather returning over the next 7 days. We're expecting some scattered showers and isolated storms anywhere from Colorado back to North Dakota, and a bit of activity back in Florida and South Texas. High pressure is building across the Northeast and across Canada as we head into Friday and Saturday. This is largely due to a large low-pressure system that's sitting near the Rocky Mountains. We should have at least some activity here across the Dakotas and Nebraska. However, this will be primarily across the high plains, where I expect at least some isolated severe weather to return with damaging winds, large hail, and maybe even a few tornadoes. And then on Sunday and Monday, we'll have another round of severe weather across the northern plains. There's not much to look forward to in the Midwest until Sunday, which is a day where we could see some severe weather trying to make an appearance. But overall, there's nothing significant in the forecast right now. Early next week, scattered showers and thunderstorms will continue across the northern plains and Midwest. Rain will also continue across the southeast, and then anywhere in between. We're talking about just the chance of scattered showers and thunderstorms from now through next Thursday. There are a couple of areas to watch that could be forming over the next week. There could be a cyclone forming. A broad cyclone here, not a tropical storm in the Western Caribbean. But this area is going to be another area that we're going to be watching to see if there are any cyclones forming between Jamaica, Mexico and Belize. You can see heavy rain off the coast of the Carolinas, Georgia. This is Florida, just north of Freeport, north of the Bahamas. Some heavy rains have been adding to the rain and storms across Cuba. We're in the Caribbean and we're looking at some tropical waves, but we're going to see a new wave come in. And with that wave could eventually form. But fortunately, in the short term, the air here is pretty dry. So when these tropical waves move in there, oh wow, the dry air is going to eat them up, it's going to prevent them from growing. I want to dive into this in the Eastern Pacific, including Mexico. We've got a new tropical wave that's going to eventually move across the Eastern Caribbean over the next couple of days. This is near the Bahamas and Florida. A moisture front is moving across the Western Caribbean and is tracking tropical waves up the coast of Africa. So as we move forward into the weekend, keep an eye on this. Rain is starting to pick up here. And there's new tropical waves coming up the coast of Africa. We'll see how they do with the dry air. Now keep a close eye on things here as we track Saturday into Sunday. And then as we get into the middle of next week, there's rain accumulating from Jamaica back into Belize, Mexico, Cuba. Watching the Cayman Islands and then the US model, and some of the models are trying to develop a tropical wave that's really dissipated. So as we head into next week, we could have some development near the southeast coast of the US and look out into the Western Caribbean. So as we head into Thursday, scattered areas of rain, Cancun, Cozumel, Ladeville, Hopkins towards Roatan, look anywhere from Montego Bay back to Giselle, Santo Domingo for rain chances. Scattered storm chances back to Puerto Rico. As we head into Friday, you'll see rain start to pick up, even Merida and Camper are coming back. Over parts of Florida, heading into Cuba, the Bahamas for some rain. And as we head into the weekend, rain is building up Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama. A weak tropical wave is trying to move through the Eastern Caribbean this weekend. However, that could still bring us some heavy rains in some of the islands. Could be coming across the Avalon Peninsula. Scattered storms towards the foothills, back into the Rocky Mountains. And then you can see Manitoba looking towards Ontario, the Great Lakes for some of that extra rain. But there's an area near Florida and the Bahamas that could change a little bit as we go through the weekend. And of course, the water temperatures there are very warm. So that's going to be something we'll be watching over the next couple of days. In the central Caribbean, but across the eastern United States, through Bermuda, the Maritimes. Across the entire Atlantic Canada, rougher seas, off the east coast of the United States and Canada of course. But there's also some heavier rain. Areas north of the Bahamas. There's a good chance of scattered storms. Cuba, Jamaica, some other areas have had some thunderstorms or at least some rain over the last couple of days. The Cayman Islands as well. Haiti, the Dominican Republic, and Puerto Rico. Scattered showers and thunderstorms around most of the heavy rain in Martin South, not too much through Dominica. But if there are showers or even thunderstorms it could cause a little damage. Trinidad, we could see a little more, where there could be a few spots of rain. Be careful with some scattered showers. St. Vince of the Grenadines, Grenada, St. Lucia, Barbados, Suriname, not as much. Northern Guyana, rain is likely. Scattered rain through Venezuela, Colombia, parts of Costa Rica, Panama. We have a lot of microclimates, but this one will eventually show up near Nicaragua. Maybe a little higher in some spots in and around Mexico City. We've got a flood threat. We're going back to Texas. Not so much. You see, it's a little quieter in the southern United States, except for Florida and the coastal areas, near Georgia and the Corollas. That's where some heavy rains are expected. Especially in Florida and the northern Bahamas. We will continuously update the storm situation in the next news. Please subscribe to the channel to follow. Thank you for watching the news on CIA TV channel. We're going to break down what you need to know about the weather that's going to affect the United States over the next 7 days. We're going to dive into the pattern that's coming up and we're going to talk about temperatures, where we're seeing some changes going on. Things are about to reverse quickly in terms of what's going to happen in the United States. We're also going to talk about hurricane conditions, where there's going to be some changes, but it's actually looking pretty similar to what we've been talking about, and fortunately the tropics are really inactive as we're getting closer to the peak of hurricane season. We're going to be deep into the tropics, tracking some tropical waves offshore. This is going to be intensifying some showers and storms as we move through Puerto Rico, the United States, the British Virgin Islands, even Antigua, Barbuda, St. Kitts, back to Haiti and the Dominican Republic throughout the week. However, the threat of flooding will eventually come to us.